Hello peeps. Oh, no, going that way. Hello. Oh. Let me just check my settings. Oh. Okie dokie. I'm having a few internet issues today. It keeps telling me my internet is dropping out. Not quite sure about that. And I've got a lot of frame dropping, which I don't normally have. And it says my encoding is overloaded. I don't know what that means. Let me play in the settings a second. Just while I'm waiting for people to arrive. My encoding. Encoding. Where is the encoding? Var it be? There isn't any encoding. Well, there must be somewhere. I just can't find it. So, I don't know. I've got a bit of an issue with my internet. It might be my internet, it might be YouTube. I don't know. I don't normally get this with the other, with Twitch, so it might be. Excuse my grotty nails. I just noticed as I was about to come on that I really needed to do my nails. But obviously now I don't have time to do my nails, so and they're going to get messed up anyway. Right. Here we go. Just getting a... Why are you so slow today? Come on. Here we go. Right. So, I'm hoping to get this finished today, but it kind of depends. I don't know. It depends how detailed I get with it. I'm hoping not to get too detailed, but yeah, you never know with me, do you? It could go either way at any time. That out just a tiny bit so I don't keep hitting my head on it. Hopefully I won't hit it. Right, so I've got my paints out for my rhino. I'm using my Americanas in light mocha and slate grey. That's this colour and this colour. And then I've got my darkest dark is actually the muted grey acrylic. I didn't want to use black. And I've got London Night, which is this nice shading colour. If you saw me on Twitch the other day, you will remember that I found another piece of the rock that I used. I put collage down, so this and this and this and parts of this are all bits of rock, or rock face, and I kept them because I thought they would be really cool for using as rhino, what's it called? What's the word? Skin, because it's really tough and rugged and craggy and they've got really big grooves in their skin. I thought this was perfect for it. So what I'm thinking is use that bit there, so I get a nice dark and then light shadow on him naturally with the collage paper, which you can't see because I haven't moved my camera up far enough. Did that move again? I swear my camera moves. There we go. And then the bit that's left I can probably use. It's a shame it's not the other way round, because if it was the other way round it would fit there, wouldn't it? or there. But I can probably use it somewhere. So I'm going to fussy cut this one. I don't normally. Actually, no, I'm going to tear around the edge, but fussy tear. Fussy tear, there you go. I'm going to fussy tear. Now this does mean that I'm going to need to do a little bit of a paint job up here to get this to blend in, obviously, but that's okay. The slate grey is semi-opaque. So I can actually go over this bit and it will show, and then I can go around the edges. That's Miss Maddie sneezing in the background. I can go around the edges with words. Come on, words. I can go around the edges with the blue. The blue, there we go, that's what I was looking for. Nick Cake, hello. I've just started, you haven't missed anything. I just didn't want to have too much of a gap at the beginning of the video, so I just started talking. And basically I've just been talking about this bit of collage that I found that will be perfect for his back. Baby, stop crying please, come on. Mummy's working. Sit in there, stop your crying. Don't be silly. Come on, in. Good girl. Now sit quietly. Okay. So let's sticky this down. I'm hoping to finish this one today, but it depends how detailed I get. At the moment, I'm kind of in a, you know what, it's Saturday night, let's just finish this and go watch a movie kind of mood. Because I've been working all day on admin stuff. But, yeah, painting is my happy place. So, that almost perfectly follows the curve of his back that I already drawn in. Fantastic, I love it when that happens. Just made toast and a cup of coffee. I just made a cup of coffee and I've drunk it already. I'm going to have to go and make another one in a minute. Although it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit late. Maybe I'll have a decaf. It is 6:15. I might have to have a decaf. We'll see. Okay. And press that down. Get rid of any air bubbles. That fits perfectly. I can't believe how well that fits. I like torn edges, so what I'm going to do is that. Okay, now I've got this bit as well. Obviously I need to get rid of that straight edge, but I can paint over it. It really is a shame it's not the other way around, because that would have fit in there perfectly, look. Yeah! Why aren't you other ways? Okay. I could potentially use that bit in there. Let's do that. Again, I'm going to tear it because I find torn edges a bit easier to blend than straight edges. Straight edges are unnatural. So, yeah, it was a perfect piece of collage paper. And not only was it the perfect piece of collage paper, it matched, or it was of the same piece of rock as I'd already used. I couldn't believe it when I found it. So let's pop that in there. That gets rid of that nasty straight piece there. Makes it a bit easier, because this is kind of overlapping, so that makes it easier to fix that bit. And this week I will remember to take photos. I need to remember to take photos because I forgot to take photos for the progress shots for those who weren't here live. So now I've stuck down that bit of collage, I will take a photo. Oops. There we go. I reckon I can blend that in fairly easily because there's going to be a highlight there under his ear and just here. So I think I can blend that in nicely. What is going on here with this air bubble? Get thee gone, air bubble. We don't like air bubbles. Air bubbles have no business. No business. No business. Isn't that right, Miss Maddie? She's sitting on the sofa looking disgusted at me because I've got the front room, I've got the door to my, I've got the door to my bedroom closed to keep the warm in because I don't need my bedroom to be warm. I need the rest of the house to be warm. Right, now, I was kind of hoping I could use that bit somewhere, but I don't really think there's anywhere I could use it because it goes the wrong way. Oops, unless I put like just a tiny bit there just to give him some texture. Ah, now hang on a minute, I was talking about that last week, wasn't I? He has a little bit of tufty bit on the top of his head. Did you know rhinos have a little bit of tufty bits to put on the top of their head? What am I using to pin down my collage bits? I use soft gel matte medium. Now if I'm using acrylic paint, this is what I tend to use in my art journals. If I'm just sticking random bits of paper, ordinary paper, no, I said that wrong. If I'm using shiny bits of paper with acrylic paint, I use matte medium because it gets rid of the gloss on the paper. So you can see this is totally less shiny now. There's no shine on this at all, it's matte. And it also gives a better grip on the paper. It's like putting gesso on a plain piece of paper, if that makes sense. So this, not all matte mediums are made the same. I have got the Liquitex gel medium, the soft gel matte, and that works. And I have also got the Liquitex matte medium, and that does work, but it takes a bit longer to dry. The golden one is the best one I've found, and it's worth a little bit of a splurge to get it because it lasts for absolutely ages, as long as you don't leave your lid off like I do. If I was working in my sketchbook and I was just going to throw down some acrylic paint on top of a few bits of post-its on ordinary paper, like you would write on, I would just use a glue stick. As long as you're not getting it too wet, it doesn't matter. If you're going to get it wet and you want to use like inks or anything like that, I just stick a bit of PVA down. I don't worry about what it is. So it really depends what job I'm using it for. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh yes, got to use matte medium all the time. Because, you know, matte medium is blooming expensive and PVA glue is, or white glue, if you're, I can't remember if you're in America or not. PVA glue, Elmer's glue, white glue, Yoo-hoo, anything like that. Yoo-hoo gel. So, I guess the easiest way to remember it, I know you probably don't need specifically to know this information, Nit, because you're quite used to using these kind of mediums, but there are others who've never done this before. That's why I'm belabouring the explanation, as it were. For those who are new to it, think about using a pen on the paper. If you tried to write on this paper with a gel pen, would it dry? Would it smear? Would it even take? Would you even be able to write on it? If you can't write on it, or it doesn't dry, or it will smear, you want to use proper matte medium of some sort. And on the back, check that it says it's for use with collage, because not all of them are. The golden one and the Liquitex one are, but the Daler-Rowney isn't. And if you use that, it'll stick temporarily and then it'll all come off. I need something to tear that off with. If you can write on the piece of paper easily with any pen and it dries, even if it takes a couple of seconds, but it does dry, and you could use it for writing, use a Pritt stick or a Yoo-hoo stick, glue stick. You don't need to use anything fancy. And if you're going to use ordinary paper, but you're going to use it with something wet, like liquid ink or watercolour or something like that, use a bit of PVA to stick it down, but try not to get it on the top because it'll make it waterproof. Hope that made sense. I'm liking how this is coming together. That little bit there looks really good. And the funny thing is, even though it's rocks, you can't tell it's rocks. It looks like rhino skin. I like it. Let me take a picture of his tufty bit that we've put in. Oops, the wrong button. Keep doing that. You just have days where you can't use the right button for stuff. 3 times this morning I switched the kettle off instead of switching it on. Okay, so I've got another couple of tiny bits. This bit doesn't really have enough information on it to be of any use, so I think we can scrap that bit. This bit has some striations, but it also has 2 straight edges. So the question is, do I want to use that somewhere, or shall I skip it? It's a little bit too square, but it would give me a nice bit of texture transition between the dark grey and the light grey there. So I could repaint that transition, pop that in there, and disguise that straight edge quite easily. I mean, if I put it, maybe if I put it up to the edge there, or just tore off that corner, that could work. Let's just do that. Let's tear off that corner. Like that. See, that could work. I think that dark bit there is just a little bit too dark. So I'm going to take that bit off there. Make it easier to blend in. There we go. Yeah, that'll work. Let's do that. How are you, Knit? What have you been up to? Are you doing one of these crazy 100-day project things that everybody's at? I'm supposed to be doing Bun's April Art Challenge, and I haven't even got round to that yet. I was hoping to do some tonight while I sit and watch telly. I was going to do like 8 prompts in one or something. One picture, all the prompts. There we go. That's better. Let's just neaten that bit off because it's straight, so it's bothering me that it sticks out. There we go, that's better. Lifting it up a bit. I may have to put my light on in a minute because although it looks alright on camera, I'm actually losing the light, losing the daylight, so I need to be able to see. But I'm alright for a moment, so let's get my favourite blendy brush. This is a quarter. It's a Pro Art Series 63 angled shader. It's like the kind you would do your eyebrows with. And I love this brush. Absolutely love this brush. And I don't know what happened, but one of the paints I used the other day, you see the difference in the colour of the light and dark there? Yeah, one of the paints I used the day stripped the colour out of the brushes of the bristles of my brush. So that's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to find out which paint that was. It might actually have been my... Oh, it could have been my ink. I wonder if it was my alcohol ink. That would remove colour, wouldn't it? I'll have to test that later and find out, because I don't ever want to get that paint on my clothes. You're going to do a 30-day thing, but already trying a watercolour a day, so just sticking with that. Yeah, why not? Yeah. If you're already doing something and you're struggling to make sure you do that, then I think you're better off just sticking with that. And if you feel like, you know, later in the month you think, oh, I fancy doing a couple that are prompts rather than just off the top of my head, you know, there's nothing to stop you doing a watercolour from a prompt list and say, oh, I fancy painting that, I'll have a go. Hi, Val. I'm hoping this is a better time for everybody today. Now that everybody's synced into daylight savings time again, I'm hoping that it's not too late for people. Oh, you're Blythe! Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I knew you as Valerie. Why didn't you say it was you? Goodness me, you people. What are you like? Okay, so I need one of my clips to clip this corner down. It's getting stuck. I can't see any. Okay, here's a little fun one for you. This corner is curling up. It has obviously not flattened out when it dried. This side is fine, but this side hasn't flattened out when it dried. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take. Let me take my brush out of my mouth. Take a random bit of paper, reasonable size, don't have to be massive, like so. And we're going to fold this bit down so that it's vertical. Now this happens to have spots on it, so it's easy to see if it's vertical, but it doesn't matter if it's not vertical, it just needs to be roughly vertical. Okay, and then we're going to do the same on this side. So let me think, where does that need to be? I always get confused when I have to go the other way. Let's just do it that way. Let's just fold it first and then put it together afterwards. There we go. So now you've got that. What we're going to do is bend that bit up into there, and bend that bit up into there. Okay, it's rough and ready. It's rough and ready, but it doesn't matter because it's just a scrap bit of paper. We don't care if we get paint on it. Decide which way round is going to be the best. I think that way round is probably going to be the best. I'm going to grab a few bits of our thing and slot it over the bookmark like so. And what that does is it means I won't keep getting my sleeve caught. I'll have to move it when I do this bit, obviously, but I won't keep getting my sleeve caught in that corner. Ta-da! If you need a recap on how to do that a bit more sensibly, or so that it actually stays together, because obviously this is not going to stay together, you can actually look it up on Pinterest. Japanese origami bookmark, I think they're called, or corner. Japanese something or other corner mark. You could make it stay together if you folded it down like that, but that'll make too much bulk under the bottom of my page. So I just want to be able to hold this down so that I don't keep catching that corner, because there's nothing more irritating. Well, there's lots of things more irritating. There's not many things more irritating than keep catching your sleeve on the corner of your painting. Right. I don't have coffee. This is not good. I'm going to use my grey and my mocha to get I'm using 3 different greys. I'm going to use my silver grey and my mocha to get this definition back in here, just to cover up, you know, not cover up, but just to blend in this bit of collage. It's a cool tip, isn't it? It's easier than using a bookmark, a clip, because a clip will damage your page. Well, this doesn't. And you can make these properly so that they clip in, you fold it into each other at the back, and it just stays together. And they even show you how to turn them into, like if you were to use them on the corner of your page, you can turn them into like little frogs and stuff. It's ever so clever. But I just do it like that to protect my page corners. Okay, I'm going to start by blending outwards from this bit that I already know is the colour I want it to be. Let's blend that bit up into there. Oh, this is the most perfect piece of collage paper. If you didn't see the beginning, Val, you need to go and watch the beginning when I repost it later. Well, it'll be tomorrow now, but when I repost the replay, you need to go and watch the beginning, because it was incredible how well this one piece of collage fitted with what I was doing. I'm going to get rid of that grey bit there and just keep the wrinkle. There we go. That works. Just blend this bit up a little bit. I don't like that browny bit there. And I can use the colours in the rocks to inform what colour I'm going to use. So this bit is all grey. This bit here has shades of this purpley colour and mocha. So I can go ahead and brush some of the grey over these bits of collage to blend them in together. Reinforce the shape of his shoulder there by getting rid of those wrinkles up there. That disguises that mix there. And then do the same this side. And instead of defining his shoulder, I can go upwards and define that bit on his back. Just blend that out so that that bit there kind of looks like a haunch, top of his shoulder and the front of his leg coming down. See? Obviously that's not anatomically correct. The front of his shoulder is probably, actually that probably is his shoulder there. The shadows are probably not anatomically correct, but it's close enough for you to just look at it and go, oh yeah, that could be where his shoulder comes down, that could be where his leg is, that could be whatever. It's like this bit. This bit is not, I'm not even going to bother doing much with that bit. I'm just going to put in the bit of his ear here, and I might leave that rough because that line it matches up perfectly on this side. It comes all the way around here and it matches perfectly on this side, and then you've got this weird tufty bit in the middle. It's organic. You can't make a shape like that. So I could just leave that shape as it is. Let me just move you in a bit closer. Refocus. Oh, come on, stop it. So if I use my tweezers and just take off this little bit here, and this little bit here. Oh, I'm sorry, Boo, were we keeping you awake? Just take off that. There. It's wet paper, so pulling away so that the threads or the fibres of the paper kind of splay that way. And then I don't really need to do anything else with that other than tidy up this edge. So if I just grab my dark grey. Yes, I lick my paintbrushes. Don't tell me off. I don't care. I don't do that when I'm doing commissions. I have nice paintbrushes that I don't lick. But my regular paintbrushes, always licking them. So just put that in there. Get rid of those scratch marks. So now his ear comes in front, but you've got a nice organic line there coming up, little tufty bits. Maybe just, oops, a bit too dark. I don't want that colour. Far too dark. I don't want to make a crease there, I just want to make a shadow. Sorry, it keeps going in and out of focus, doesn't it? Bloody autofocus, it's a pain in the arse. Okay, so I'll use my lavender grey, this grey. No strength in my hands today, they just don't want to work. And a very fine brush. I'm just gonna, there we go, that's better. Just reinforcing that natural line on the rock that is already there. And bringing that down into his hairline. So now I've done that, I can, there's a bit more paint. Just do a little bit more. Again, not really painting wrinkles, I'm just kind of giving the impression of wrinkles. So now he's got a fluffy, tufty bit. There we go. Looking good. I like it. Okay. The whole white ear thing needs sorting out. It's a little bit too white. Ooh, noisy plane. Oh, I didn't do his ears last week, did I? So that's just fussying. A little bit of fussying. Again, I'm not going to paint the whole ear solid colour. I want to give it a little bit of depth and dimension. Similar thing on this side, I think. We're keeping Boo awake, apparently. Just reinforce this corner here. I'm not doing the bits here. That's catching the light because that bit of his ear is coming forward. Again, with this bit of the ear is coming forward, so I'm not going to get rid of that light patch there. And let's just do a very small patch. This grey is quite overpowering, this dark grey, but it's just dark enough to put in a shadow under the ear like that, and then blend it out into that like that. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit more and blend it down because I'm going to take the white and I'm going to blend it back up. And then I'm just going to tidy up this corner. Maybe put a little bit of a shadow in there. tiniest little bit of shadow can give you so much dimension on a piece. Just putting a little bit of shadow in there and blending it up. Just give you the impression that that bit is further back than the rest of it. What kind of commissions do I do? Whatever people want. I've done digital stuff for, I do a calendar every year for a charity, a Romanian charity that helps Romanian street dogs. It's run by a girl in London. Love my people, but we don't treat animals very well. So I design their calendars and cards and stuff every year for Christmas. Got to start doing those soon. I can't believe I'm thinking about Christmas already. I've got a commission at the moment where I'm designing a logo for somebody for their shop, their Etsy shop. But that is a painted mixed media logo, which will then be digitised. I do stuff like this, if that's what people want. I do pet portraits. Portraits. Get it? Let me see. Do I have... I do have Maddie on here. I did a picture of Maddie as a sample, but I do people... oh, I removed it. Okay. I do mostly whimsical portraits of people with their pets. Just find one. Talk amongst yourselves. There you go. That's the one I did of Maddie. Ooh. And that's watercolour, coloured pencil, silver ink, collage, ink, acrylic, everything. And I usually do pictures of people with their pets, but I don't have a photo of that handy. Ooh, unless it's in that book that I just put down there earlier. Let me see. It might be, you know. You never know. You never know. No, it's not. It's the other one that I just put down there. That's the style of portraits that I do. So usually I do kids and their pets. So I'll take something like that, less cartoony, and turn them into a picture of that, like that, with their dog or cat, or, you know, sometimes there's 2 kids and 1 cat, sometimes there's 3 cats and 1 kid. But that's what I do. I do fun, whimsical, stylised illustrations, I think they're called, really. They're not really portraits, they're more... I consider myself a mixed media illustrator, not a mixed media artist. I'm not a fine artist. Right, let's get a little bit of this grey while I have my grey. Remember to wash that brush out. I'll dig some of my portraits out for the live stream on Monday, because I should probably mention on Twitch that I do portraits, especially since I need to raise money for my car. So anybody wants to order a Christmas present, now's the time to do it. My car's going to have a couple of repairs done before it gets to MOT in August. I'm going to do the same down here, just blending in that. Oops. straight edge along there. Leave the textured bits, because that's why I put the bit of paper down, was to get the textured bits. And then I'll get the darker colour again. And blend the other way. So this is now going to come down over there. Oops. I'm not blending all over this because I want to keep those little bits of texture. I'm just blending the edges. So that the game is, or the aim of the game is, to make sure that the collage pieces aren't really recognisable, because copyright. Not that it really matters for personal use, but technically this is a class and it's educational, so I'm covered, but you still don't want to use copyright. If I wanted to sell prints of this, then I've got to make sure that you can't look at it and go, ooh, that's a picture of the rock from so-and-so's picture of the Grand Canyon or something like that. You know, I don't know where it came from. It was National Geographic or something, I think. But I don't think you could necessarily tell that that's a piece of rock. You might think that this was a piece of rock, that this was a piece that actually I haven't done much to, but as you see in the previous one, actually I've done a load to this, and it was actually a bit of sand dune formation that was originally that way. So there's no way even the photographer who took the photo could recognise it for what it started out as. So that's the aim with collage. And the same with this one that I was working on the other day. For those of you who missed the stream the other night, this is my Edgar Allan Poe page that I'm working on. Obviously, the photographer and or model involved in that shoot, and possibly the Vogue editor, because that's where it came from, would recognise that as being something that they knew. This, I think, is from a classical painting, so it's probably not covered by copyright. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, depends if it's part of a collection. But even so, I will go in and detail in this enough that you wouldn't look at it, and she won't look exactly the same by the time I'm finished, is what I'm saying. So the overall effect will be very similar, but you wouldn't necessarily know that it was a piece of collage or where it was from. That's the idea behind it. So that's a replay. I don't know if I put it on Patreon yet. Did I remember to put it up? I might have forgotten to put it up. It should have gone up should have gone up yesterday, and I might have forgotten to put it up because I spent 2 days arsing around trying to get my car back. Which reminds me, I've got to put up the astrology, which should have gone live on Thursday. It didn't go live for some reason. It deleted itself. My pictures keep deleting themselves off Patreon. I need to ask Courtney if that's something that she's having the same problem with. So I'm going to blend this down. I've got a nice dark area in there. Now his ear is going to be very dark around here, so let's put a little bit of a highlight here, because that's coming up towards the light. Have some hair down here, which we can blend in there. When in doubt, smudge. Smoosh is the technical term. Collage is the starting point for me. I'm not one of those people who... A lot of mixed media artists, and soapbox time, because this is a pet peeve of mine. A lot of people think that the point of mixed media is Let's paint acrylic paint all over the background first, because then we don't have to deal with a blank page. And it just goes downhill from there. I never do anything how can I put it? A lot of people do what I call avoidance painting, where they're doing something to avoid dealing with something else. In a most basic form, somebody who always draws the back of somebody's head, or people from the side because they can't do a full face, or they can't get the eyes to match, or so they always put hair over one eye because they can only draw one eye, you know, something like that. That is not painting, that is avoidance painting. You are avoiding doing the bits that you don't like. Now if you're just painting for pleasure and that works for you, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, beginners tend to get the impression that that's the way to do it. Because people say, right, we're going to start by gessoing the page. They don't explain why they're gessoing the page, and they don't go into information about how and when you need to gesso a page. I've never gessoed a page in my life. The hell would I want to gesso a page for? I don't need to, therefore I don't use gesso. I use gesso, but not for gessoing pages. There's a lot of people who will say you start by gessoing the page, because that's what they were told by somebody else they watched on YouTube, who said, right, this paper is really thin, I'm going to start by gessoing the page. They don't take the time to look into why they need to gesso a page, or even whether they need to gesso a page. A lot of people use like the moleskin cahiers, like I just had in my hand, that is now gone AWOL, I don't know where it is. The one I literally just had in my hand, the thin paper, you know, moleskin paper. I've never gessoed moleskin paper, but I've used acrylic on it. People don't understand what gesso is for, so they tell others what they know, and what they know is that somebody told them to use gesso on thin paper to make it stronger, so that's what they do. But that's only half the story. And once you know enough of the story, you know that if your paper is, actually my paper is nice and thick, it's nice and matte, it's very sturdy paper. You get it wet, it doesn't tear or anything because it's print media, it's heavy print paper. If it's in a book, it's photo quality paper, if it's got these kind of pictures in it. Absolutely no need to gesso it. Does that mean it'll take all kinds of media? No. Does that mean you could use oil paint on it without gesso? No. You could use oil paint on it, you'd have to leave your book open for about 3 weeks, but you'd have to gesso the paper. Because the oil would seep through the paper and the paint would stick on top, or the pigment would sit on top, and eventually all the pigment would flake off and you'd be left with just grease stains. That's why you need to gesso. It gives the paint something to stick to, because gesso will stick to anything. But plastic type acrylics, like the gloss acrylics, you'd have to gesso as well, because why? They're shiny. If it's shiny, it needs extra stick. It's like I was saying about my collage here. I use matte medium to stick it down and to paint over it. That way I don't need to gesso, because the matte medium acts as a binder to hold the acrylic paint onto the page. A lot of people don't realise that matte medium and gesso are interchangeable for most things. However, this stuff, chalk acrylic or matte acrylic, not necessarily these brands, I'm just saying matte or chalk acrylic, craft acrylic, you know what it's made of? The same stuff that they make gesso out of. So why on earth would you need to gesso a page in order to get gesso to stick to a page? This is just coloured gesso, basically. It's got a few more properties to it, a little bit of light fastness and this, that and the other, but this is basically coloured gesso. no need to put gesso on top of gesso. It's like people who use white gesso instead of white acrylic. Why do they use white gesso instead of white acrylic? Because it's easier to put stuff over white gesso if you're not using a matte acrylic. If you're using matte acrylic, matte white acrylic and gesso are interchangeable. Funnily enough, if you get the matte, the washable one, you know, the special bathroom and kitchen paint where it's washable but it's matte and it's kind of a chalky finish? Yeah, don't bother buying gesso, buy that stuff. It's a third of the price and it works exactly the same. It's just a primer. It's like with that stuff, unless you're putting it over a dark colour or a light colour over a dark colour, you don't need a primer. Why don't you need a primer? Because it is primer, it's just got colour in it. You see? I lost my train of thought now. Collage is a starting point. Yeah, for me, collage is a starting point. I like to take a page and either add something to it to give placement to my images, or I think I'm going to start working on this bit because I want this bit to echo this bit. I want to get some wrinkles in here. I either start putting in bits of... I lost my train of thought again. My brain went, ooh, painty. Pretty, painty. It's like the squirrel phenomenon, but, ooh, paint. For instance, I'm looking at this page. What do I want to get rid of this page? Well, it depends entirely what I want to use on this page. If I don't know what I want to use, I don't know what I want to get rid of. And if I don't have any idea what I'm going to do on the page, I don't know what I want to use out of it. Now you can wing it, but I tend to pick a page that's got something on that I like. For instance, this, if you saw, I don't know if you saw me on Wednesday doing this, but this bit here, under here, is a picture of Elvis Presley on a red background with a red velvet shirt. And this is Elvis Presley's hair. And this is the back of his ear and his neck. And that is his shirt there. And that's his shoulder. And then I put her face over the top because I want to make it into a woman. And then I added some hair because I'm going to add some nice hair to it to make her very dark and gothic. Hi, Ina. So, why did I choose the page with Elvis Presley? No particular reason other than I liked the colour. I liked the red for a gothic page. And then, looking at how it looked there and the fact that her face was roughly the same size as his, I decided actually I could just put her face over his and incorporate her as part, or him as part of her. And from there, I then knew that, right, okay, that means I'm going to have a big patch of red here, so I don't necessarily need to keep the red here. It tells me that I need to put red over here. It tells me that that's going to match because we've got a complementary colour scheme, or a universal colour scheme. Flesh tones, black, white, red. Flesh tones, black, white, red. It matches. And then because her dress is white, and I will probably keep it white, I like the cream colour of this, that then told me that I could put black. I could keep the black down here and along this side, because this page looked a lot like that page. And it goes from there. You can inform what your next move is going to be. The fear of way of drawing or painting is not, or mixed media is not a relaxing way to paint for me, because you're literally just stressing out about what you don't want to deal with. Instead of, you know, I could have just as easily done this page on there. I've got the skills to do it. It's the same colour scheme. But then I'd have been like, oh, how am I going to get rid of him? How am I going to get rid of this? Because this is too dark. How am I going to incorporate some light into this? And I would have started worrying about how I was going to do things instead of just looking at it and going, okay, what can I do with this? That's where the fun is for me. It's like there's a really awesome picture in here of Jimi Hendrix. And there is no way, I already know, there is no way I'm going to be painting over it, ever. I might paint over it literally, turn it into a painting. Or I might scan it and reprint it and turn it into a painting. But look at the colours. That picture is so inspirational for me. I love the colours. I love the textures. I love his style. I love everything about that picture. Not a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, but I love everything about that picture. This picture is informing other things I'm doing in the book. You'll find that all the colours that I'm using are in this picture. Even in my rhino. Where is he? Where did he go? Even my rhino has similar colours. It's got that orange. It's got that grey. It's got that dark blue colour. So, yeah, I will never paint over that picture. I might scan it or try to reproduce it on this page. That would be interesting. But this picture will probably not get painted over. Hi, Ina. You're not very late. You only missed an hour, and it's mostly been me collaging bits. I've lost Rhino again. Where's he gone? There he is. So I put in that bit of collage that I found the other day. It is a really good photo of him, isn't it? It's a fantastic... It doesn't actually say... I don't think it says who the photographer was. It's got to be a publicity shot or something. It's obviously not for the book. A 1968 photograph. Doesn't say who it's by. Doesn't say who took the photo. Unless it's credited at the back. 3837. Photo credits. Scanning it quickly, I can't see 38. Might have to look it up and put it in the notes later. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. That is a really good photo as well. I love that one. That's Amy Winehouse. That's a fantastic photo. Look at all that blue. Ugh, gorgeous. Anyway, as I was saying, let me write that down. Where's my phone? That piece of collage that I found last week, I've used up here. This is literally, that is the piece of collage there. I'm going to tidy up the edge. Although I might leave it. It kind of looks like he's got hair on his back. They do have hair on their backs, don't they? Random notes. Patreon. Sudan 3. Jimmy. Photo. Credit. When you selected colours for Suzanne, Suzanne, Hello, Suzanne. Sudan, was it intentional or subconsciously taken from the Jimi Hendrix photo? Neither. It's that photo. I read the book first because it's an awesome book. It's all about tragedies and mysteries of rock and roll. It's all about death and murder and all that kind of stuff. Real crime, true crime. I'm in it. So I read the book, and as I was going through the book, that picture stuck in my mind more than anything else. I remember that picture more than anything else because it really captured my attention. So it's not a case of saying, oh, I'm going to take colours from that picture and put them into here. It was a case of, I'm going to do a picture of Sudan the rhino. Here's the collage pieces I'm going to be using. Which of my several different journals shall I put it in? Actually, that orange and grey kind of scheme would fit with this photo, so I'll put it in this book. So it wasn't like, oh, I took the colours from the picture and used them in this. I chose what I was going to do for this, and then it happened that because they matched, I felt this book was a good fit for it. I could just as easily have done it in my big notebook. I have several different art journals. This is my altered journal, which is mostly... This is mostly what I've been doing my Twitch streams in, actually. Again, this one's got the same colours. And again, it wasn't, oh, I'm going to use all these kaleidoscope colours because it matches his shirt. It was, that is very Mexican mix kind of shirt colours. That means my cocoa page will go with it. Other way round. I've also got my big journal, which you see on Twitch. This is the one I'm doing that in. Got lots of different ones in here. I've got my little sketchbook journal, my Moleskine, which is more illustrations. And then I've got this one, which I haven't really shown the inside of because I'm doing my pages for my bun classes in here, my by bun classes. I don't show working in this one or part done pieces of work except for little bits because it would encroach too much on showing what's in the class. What I plan to do is just show the finished pieces or do a flip of the whole book when I'm done with it. But, you know, that's going to be a while. Right. You'll have to excuse me for 1 minute. I need to grab myself another cup of coffee. I need to turn the heating off because it suddenly got really warm. And I need to go and put my studio lights on. So I will be back in just a minute or two. Refreshments. There we go. That's better. Let's put this light on to counteract the shine on the camera. Perfecto. Okay. Everyone's process is so interesting. Yeah, I find everything fascinating. This is why I liked Bun's classes, because even as somebody who does this kind of mixed media already, I still learnt some stuff from her that I can now, obviously because I'm that much more advanced, I'm kind of peer level with her rather than learning from her. It's more like looking at the way she does things and melding with what I already do, if that makes sense. It's like, a good example actually is this that I was doing with the ink blowing. Now that's something I learned off Bun. It's not something I didn't already know could be done. It's just that I'm not a big fan of drippy ink. I don't like it when people do big ink drops at the top of the page and run them all down the page. That drives me insane. But this and this were techniques that I learned from Bun that I already knew they were out there, but I hadn't used them because I hadn't played with them, basically. Because my head said, no, I don't like it messy stuff and I don't like blobby ink drops. Therefore, I don't like scribbly ink or blowy ink or whatever splattery things either. And she showed me how to separate these out from, oh, I'm just going to blob a bit of ink at the top of the page and drip it down. If that makes sense. She separated it out in my head, so now I can use that technique in different ways. Her classes are very good. She is one of the very few peer teachers. I mean, obviously there's people way better than me. Way better. But on our kind of level, you know, the people who are part of your groups and you chat to us on Facebook and we're not like people you never see. Like James Gurney, for instance. James Gurney's a fine artist. He happens to be an urban sketcher, and I did meet him at the Manchester Symposium, but he's a fine artist. He just happens to do urban sketching. Other than that, I'm nowhere near his league. He is a professional fine artist who has exhibited in galleries and he's known worldwide and etc, etc. You know, I'm more of a teacher, more of a hobby teacher, I guess. Most of my students are not people who want to be professionals. They're people who want to do this as a hobby or for fun. And Bun is in that same, you know, category of... She's an illustrator, which is completely separate to what she does as a teacher. But I like, seeing from somebody else's perspective. Not necessarily learning a new technique, but just looking at that technique through somebody else's eyes. It really gives you a different perspective, literally. It shows you possibilities that you had previously ignored or rejected because you were looking at it from this side. And when you come and look at it from that side, you suddenly realise that actually, yes, this side is all one particular colour and it's one particular shape and it's hard and it's this, that and the other and it's shiny and whatever. And you look at it and go, oh no, that's not my taste, I don't want to do it. But when you come around this side, you find out actually it's quite cool. It's got a jaggedy bit at the back and it's got lots of texture and there's bits crumbling off it, and you know, it's really interesting shape, and you can see round the back of it, see all sorts of other things. And that's really interesting for me, is to see the same thing through somebody else's eyes. That's why I love urban sketching. You get 25 people or so on the same day, sitting doing the same thing, mostly using the same media. Most people use, well, in our group we're mostly dry media artists, but a lot of urban sketching groups are pen and watercolour. And you get all of these people drawing exactly the same thing in exactly the same place. And you see things that you didn't see when you walked around. You see perspectives of things that you didn't notice. And everybody's picture is completely different, even if they've sat side by side and done the same view. And that is absolutely fascinating. I love that. That's what makes this exciting. That's 2 soapboxes in one day. You need to stop egging me on. But yeah, everybody I've done classes with previously, they do layers for the sake of layers. It's layer, 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 because that's what you do with mixed media. And that's not a good enough reason for me. I'm sorry, but that's how we do it. I'm an Aquarian, dude. That's not going to fly with me. Give me a reason. I got to have a rule, because if I have a rule, I can break it. If I don't have a rule, I can't break it, and it's not interesting to me. I'm going to pull out my white and start doing some highlights before I get too dark. He's getting a little bit too dark in areas. And Bun does this thing that she calls authentic layers, which, in a nutshell, without going too much into her method, you do a layer and there's a reason for that layer. And the reason for that layer is that when you look at the whole piece later, 6 or 7 layers later, that bit is going to be there doing this and having that effect on this piece. So all of her stuff, absolutely everything she puts down, there is a reason for it. She's done it like that because that's the effect she wants to create 2 or 3 layers down the line. She's a planner. I don't plan. I fly by the seat of my pants. I go, oh, I fancy painting a rhino, and off I go. I'm not a planner at all. She is. But that's how I learned to layer, not properly, but not to just say, oh no, I don't do layers. I don't see the point. Which is the perspective that I had before. I don't see the point in doing layers just for the sake of doing layers. I work from less detailed to more detailed in my layers, and that's the only reason there's layers. Now I've worked out that by looking at the way she does it, I can incorporate bits of that into what I do. And now I'm able to do stuff like this and say, okay, well, yes, if I layer this bit up to begin with, that will bring this bit forward more. So by incorporating a little bit of what she's taught me into what I already do, I can be more effective with my own artwork. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. There is always something that somebody else can teach you, no matter how good you are. If you ever get to the point where you say, well, that's it, no, I've learnt everything I can do with this now, let's move on, you might as well just pack up your paintbrushes and go home, because you haven't learnt all there is to know. What you've done is you've reached the end of either what you can access, in which case you need to start looking at professional stuff, or you just don't want to learn anymore. And again, there's nothing wrong with saying, right, that's it. I love doing what I do, and I'm not, you know, I might drop in a few bits and pieces here that I pick up from YouTube, but other than that, I like this, and I'm going to stick with it until I get bored. That's fine. And maybe you'll never get bored. So maybe you'll never need to do or want to do another class, and that's totally okay. But that should never stop you experimenting. and saying, right, what happens if I do this? Because the minute you start doing that, you turn back into that person who emails somebody like me and says, can I use acrylic paint in my moleskin? And you get the answer back, well, have you got acrylic paint and have you got a moleskin? If so, get a brush and have a go. See what happens. Stop it now. I was all calm and serene when I came on here, and now you've wound me up again. Right, this is going to be a bit tricky because I've got to paint across this crease, and the crease does not want to sit down completely. Let me try. I've got this in because this bit is a bit floppy, but I'm not working on this side at the moment, so maybe I can hold that down like that. Oh, that works a bit better. There we go. For those who didn't watch the last one, I gutted this spine out of my book. That's in the replay from the previous session. I've got the hiccups. Sudan number 2, I think. Yeah, Sudan number 2, because I got fed up with not being able to get into the crease. This means that the book now lies flat. So now this is tricky. I've got to think about. I've got lots of different things going on here. Let me just get rid of this. I'm just going to brush some of that on there and lighten up some of that black. I just want to get rid of that paint that's on my brush. There we go. Okay. Right. Let me show you what I mean. Ugh. Where are you? Oh, there it is. I keep changing stuff. Okay. What we've got here is a series of shapes. So we've got to think about where the shapes meet and where they interact, as well as where they round off. And by rounding off, I mean, like on his back, that is a plane that goes up and over and round. And where it rounds off, you're going to get shadow and shading. And that's what tells you that he's not just flat, he's a 3D object. Because he's not just that. Okay? He is a shape there that goes round and goes around and goes around, albeit it goes around and back out onto his back. And this bit goes around. So from the front, he's basically that shape. He's a cylinder, effectively. And what happens with this is you've got three cylinders, but two different shapes of cylinder meeting each other. Because what's happening here is you've got another cylinder coming up here, because that horn is round. So that horn, actually, let's do that in a different colour so you can see it better. Let's use a red. Come on, go away. So his horn is here. In 2D, that's what it looks like. It's flat. It's just a rectangle with a wonky bit. What's really happening is this curves round behind, and this curves round behind, and this is flat, and this comes down into his face there, because this is actually a curve. Now this is an optical illusion. It's not really flat. It's a curved surface. But if you look at a curve from straight on, okay, it's a curve, and now it's a straight line. What makes a curve a straight line? The angle you're looking at it. So although this bit at the top is actually essentially a flat disc looking from down there, it actually would look like that. That's not what we see when we look at it sideways. If we tilt that sideways, we see that. But this part is growing down into his face. So that makes it a different shape. It's not just going to be coming down here and going square. So we need to account for that while we're shading. So this part, again, we've got that shape, if you were looking at it from the top down. This horn here is really complicated, because not only does it have this part here, which means that it's going that, I've done it again, I need to do it in a different colour. Blue, there we go. This part here is essentially the same shape, so this part is going to be the same. So it's curving that way, and it's curving that way, and it's curving that way, which is this part here. Okay, so we've got exactly the same thing happening. However, at the top, we've also got this happening. What the hell is happening there? Well, we've got it continues up and around, and it continues up and around, but it also continues up and down. So we've got a rollover. Up, over, and down. It tells you that that is not just a flat shape, it's 3D. So we have got this initial cylinder shape, but then this initial cylinder shape turns into effectively a ball. That looks rude, it's not meant to. There we go. Now the problem, can you see what the problem is now? This is flat. This shape, this area is flat. This shape, this area is flat. But this shape, when you fill in the shading, obviously that line is not going to be there because it's all one piece. You're actually going to have a shaded part that is darker, lighter, highlighted. Why? Because this bit is a ball, not a circle. It's not a flat disc, it's a 3D ball. And that's where your shading comes into it. So once you shade the rest of it, you start to see, okay, this is also dark, What does that mean? It means it's not catching the light. This will also have a bit of dark, and it will gradually get lighter as it comes across because it's turning towards the light. This will be catching the light, so it might even go a little bit further up here, like that, because it's more of a straight shape than an actual sphere. And then as it turns away from the light again, you'll start to get this creeping up on the far side as you get that turn, and the same here. So this is going to create the sphere shape. So to take it back to the sphere, if you got rid of that bit there, made it the sphere, this is what you'd end up with. And that should look familiar to anybody who's done a drawing course. Shade and tone and value. That is why we need to be careful about how we add the shading to this. So the first thing I did in the previous thing, which I didn't really talk about when I did it, maybe I should have, but I think it's more relevant to talk about it now, is to decide where my light's coming from. Now, of course, we've got moonlight coming down from over there. So that's casting some light onto his face there. But the moonlight is also reflected in the water. So we've got uplighting. So we've got 2 points of light. We've got light coming from here, soft light, and we've got hard light coming from here. Hard light is direct light from an object that has light. Although technically the moon doesn't have light, it's also a soft object. The sun would be a hard light because it emits light. The moon reflects light, so technically it's a soft object, but because it's so bright, we refer to it as a hard light. So the moon is reflecting sunlight down, and then the water is reflecting that light back up. It's not a direct light. The water isn't emitting a light itself. We say the moon does, but obviously the moon doesn't. But the moon is extremely bright. So that's how we term it. The water does not emit light, it reflects light that's thrown at it. That gives you a soft light lighting up this. So the key is to think of it in terms of steps. If it's direct light, it's going to be as light as it can be. Anything being hit by direct light is going to be very light. Anything that's being hit by soft light is going to be the next level of light down. So if this is white, this would be cream. This may also be casting cream on some bits that are turning away from it, and that's okay. But you are never going to get the same light coming from here up as you will from the direct light. Straight away, that tells us we've got cream here reflecting upwards, and we've got cream here reflecting downwards. So you tell me, what does that tell you about what I need to add in this area and this area, and a little bit on his eyelid where it protrudes, possibly even a bit on his nose because his nostrils come out sideways, so maybe a little bit here as well. What am I going to need to do to those sections? I'll give you a second to answer because, like, Nick Cake's got lag for days. I'll be on the next question by the time she answers this one. Anybody? Can you hear Maddie snoring in the background? She's so cute. Anybody? I don't know if you're all lagging or if nobody knows the answer. A bit of shade because the nostril and eye stick out a bit. You've skipped ahead, Ina. What would you do before that? Yes, you would need shadows. But before. Almost. Almost. We've got the light from the lake. The light from the lake is reflecting up cream here. So what are we missing? If this is our soft light or secondary light source, as it's sometimes referred to, what are we missing from here? Light from above, that's right. We need to make this section and any bits that are catching light from the primary light source a little bit lighter than the light from the secondary light source. Otherwise, your eye tells you that what you're seeing is not possible. Because your eye is saying, these bits are light, they're all... Sorry, I've got a dog hair in my... I get stuck on my lip ring. These bits are light, they're all reflecting the same light because they're the same colour, and there's moonlight, therefore it's all coming from there. And then your eye will immediately tell you that if the light is coming from there, this bit's wrong. Why? Because this bit couldn't possibly be hit. With the exception of his nostril, this bit could not possibly be hit by that direct light because his nose is right smack bang in the way. I was drawing a teacup and missed the question. That's okay, you can answer on the replay. So, in order to distinguish between the secondary light source and the primary light source, we need to make the primary light source stand out. And we do that by bringing it up a notch. Now, white is going to be a little bit too stark. But I can use... These look like almost identical colours, but they're not. They're creams. Well, they're called cafe range. This colour, I don't know if it shows as well on camera as it does to me, but trust me when I say this colour kind of looks like a foundation colour. It's a warm beige. This is like a yellowy... This is like the colour you would wear on your on a face after you come back off holiday. Maybe. I suppose if you're pale. Well, I would, because I don't go out in the sun. In the summer, when you're getting a tan, you'd wear a warmer shade of foundation because you're getting slightly darker. Even me, even I go slightly darker in the sun. Only slightly. I'm a bit less blue. This sunny shade, yes, it's sunny and it's yellow, and yellow is a warm colour, but compared to this, it's a cooler colour. Because this has orange in it, and orange is warmer than yellow. It's relative. Yellow and orange are warm colours, but orange is warmer than yellow. Therefore, an orange-based cream is going to be warmer by comparison than a yellow-based cream. This is winter foundation. All right? This, because it's yellow instead of orange-based, although it's from the same range and it's basically the same colour, this little hint of yellow means it's lighter in hue. It's got a lighter value. So I can use this for my highlights without detracting too much from the secondary light. I don't want it to look like he's got a spotlight on his forehead. I just want him to look like, oh look, the moon is shining brightly on his forehead and it's shining brightly on the water and it's reflecting up onto his nose. Your brain will be able to make sense of that. It's a bit early to start putting in highlights, but I want to show you the difference it makes just by adding a little bit. I'm not going to add it to the water because yellow is going to be incongruous, is that the word? Incompatible, something like that. It's not going to go with water. Yellow is too warm for water. But on a living, breathing, actual animal, yellow is a cool colour. Easy way to remember that. Animals are red-blooded. Mammals, in particularly, are warm-blooded. Is that the right way round? I said with confidence. Blood's red. And therefore, you want warm colours. Can you see how just adding that, only adding those two bits there and there, not even finished, I've not even done it properly yet, it's automatically made that the primary light source. If I now add a tiny bit to the top of his nostril here, let me think, down and back out, so it's going to be about here, just below where that crease is where it's going to catch the light, where it's coming out. And then it will round off. Now his nostril sticks out. It's like magic, isn't it? I love lights and darks. Now the shadow bits that you were talking about, now that you've got your lights in where you need them, your dark bits are going to be on the opposite side. The light comes in and stops. So if you've got light here, it's going to be dark here. So your darkest darks are going to be down here. Now I've got this dark grey here already, which is serving very nicely, thank you very much. When I get right to the very end, I might put a little bit of black under there to give him some definition. I might put a little bit of black here behind his ear to show that his jaw goes out and round. I might just add a little bit of black into his crevices and into his ears. Possibly even into his eye, just to make sure that that really stands out as the eyelid overhanging the eyeball. Because it's not just like that. It's like that. So you have cast shadow. You have contact shadow and you have cast shadow. Contact is here, cast shadow is in between. If it was just like that, then you would just have contact shadow, you wouldn't have cast shadow. See where my fingers meet my hand? Dark bits, contact shadow. Away from the light, cast shadow. Something is blocking the light. And that's exactly what we've got here. His big old nuggety head here is blocking the light from this part. His big old jowl here sticking out. Think about the size of a width of a rhino's head. As it goes back and round, the bit behind his ears here is not going to see any sunlight. unless the sun's coming from over there. So that is what we need to concentrate on next, is making sure that our rounded bits are fleshed out. Okay? I'm going to start, I always like to work dark to light. I just put those bits in. I might even paint over those bits. I always find it easiest to put the highlights in last, and then the very, very, very last, if I need to, would be putting in some blacks, because black will flatten everything. You don't want to put black in too early. I never use black until the very, very end, except for pupils. Pupils on eyes. If I feel like I need... Why am I getting my phone out? I need my paint. If I feel like I need to have pupils in the eyes because I can't get it right otherwise. Sometimes you can't get the face right until you've put the eyes in. Then I will put the pupils of the eyes in, but I won't put in anything else dark in black until right at the very end, as absolute emphasis. And the reason I put my lights in first, my highlights in first and then my dark, but I work dark to light, is because you may have to then, depending on how much the black absorbs the light and draws your eye and pushes everything back, you might need to go back in and adjust your lights to make them a little bit brighter so that they stand out more, because black just takes over everything. So we have a bit in here, which is what I was going to do in the first place before I distracted myself, but at least it's a useful lesson. This is why I don't teach on Twitch. This is why I teach on Patreon, but I don't teach on Twitch. I'd be here all day. So this has to come around. And I've already laid in the basics. Like I said, I put in the basics of this last week, but I didn't explain it. And I'm working further out than I need to so that I can come back in. So this is the middle bit coming towards us and round. This is the highlight, soft highlight. It's coming from the water, it's not coming from the moon. And then we've got the turn here that is giving us the shape of the cylinder. And then down here, which I already drew a black line in, but I only put it in as a guide. Now I want to cover up most of that dark line, so I'm just left with the barest bit of a hint that that cylinder comes down. So it comes down like that, it stops dead, and it immediately comes back out, almost at a right angle. Down, back out. So you're intersecting that cylinder with that cylinder. Gives you a contact shadow, which is what that is. Same here. So I didn't do as much on this one. I'm going to put some more shading into here because remember this is soft light, so we're not going to have a lot of bright light from here. Turning around. That's blended already. So now we need to think about where is the light going to be. Don't go overboard with the light. Small brush. Where is the light going to be? Well, the primary light source is up there. So what is hitting that light? It's going to be this bit here. But it's not a hard, shiny, reflective surface. So it's not going to be reflective like a mirror like that. An elephant tusk might shine like that. But a rhino tusk is not going to. So blend it out and down. I left it dry a little bit too long. Let's put a little bit more in, blend it down. Soften that light out. See? what have we got here? We've got that ball. So we're going to have a edge. I really need to replace this brush. It's like painting with something that shape. If you're not sure, work in small sections. Blend it out as you go. So now we know that actually all of this would be whiter. Now it looks like his horn goes up and around. We've got the ball in there. Got some blending to do still, but I need to find another brush because this brush is bloody awful. In fact, you know what? I very rarely do this, but I think I'm going to put that brush in the bin. Let's have a really thin brush that's not cutting it anymore. This a big brush, you can clean it and it will usually come back together and it'll end up a bit like that, which is still useful for dry brushing and stuff. But a thin brush, once it's dead, it's dead. I got a replacement one. There we go. That one will do. That's why you shouldn't throw these bits away, but let's face it, who knows where these bits go? These are not actually paintbrushes. These are paintbrushes for masking fluid. They're a little bit stiffer. I like a stiff brush, even for watercolour. I don't like a big floppy mop brush. It's not me. Now this bit is a little bit too bright, so I can just put in a little bit, smudge it over, tone it back. Pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. That's better. This light is brighter than this light because this light is from the shadow, the reflection from the water. This light is from the direct light source. This highlight all the way round, and it would even come actually a little bit further down because this is essentially a cone. So we've got hitting the light there, and then this bit gets wider, so it's still catching the light, even though it's underneath, because that angle is still technically facing that light source. Just blend it out. The highlight for the ball. And done. Whoops. Now this is the light from the water, because that bit is facing that way. This is catching the light because it's that shape. Here we've got a plane that's coming down and it's catching the light from the water. So this bit actually needs to be a little bit darker. Not a lot darker, but just a little bit darker. Which means I need a bigger brush and I need my grey, a mid-tone. Only go one tone down. That will just add to his creases, so that's okay. But this bit, need to get in there, get a bit of softening in there, and then here can soften out where that nostril catches the light and bring it down. See? makes it a lot softer. Then you can come back in with your thinner brush and your darker colour and put back in those heavy creases. They kind of get nearer the surface as he comes up and nearer the surface, so they're going to get lighter. So we can use our lighter dark, blend it in and blend it out. Here we want that crease of his nostril because the plane comes down and then it bulges out and it catches the light. Same up here, it bulges out and it's like a roll, so it's like a baby cylinder. So we've got the light bit, the medium bit and the dark, because that bit is a roll. Same here, now we've put the light in, we can put in the shading, turning away from the light, and then we can put the, I'm not going to put the dark back in just yet, but there will be a dark line under there. Same again, the next cylinder, we've got the light, it's turning away from the light, and then we've got the same thing again, comes down and down and down, and then it comes right back out over his eyelid. So that bit is going to be quite dark on this side, and it's folding down. So again, it's going to have a highlight in the middle there. Get the really dark colour. I'm working quite quickly because I want the paint to stay reasonably wet, and I haven't wiped my brush yet because I'm getting gradually darker. The only time I'll clean my brush properly is if I'm going from dark to a lighter colour, because I want these to blend in together. So there's the crease. Up, down, round, crease. Up, down, around, crease. And look at me. How do I get covered in paint so quickly? Well, that's part of the reason. Ask a silly question, the universe will give you a silly answer. And then this crease, so it's coming down and round, and there's a really deep crease in there. And that is a crease like here. So it's coming down and then out. So I'm going to leave that, I'm not going to smudge that bit out, I'm going to leave it as a sharp crease. It gives you that extra bit of definition. That bit there went a little bit too dark, so while it's still wet, go back in. I've still got the dark on my brush, but I add the little bit of the light in and they will blend together. So I'll get a mid-tone. We'll soften that out. But it will still keep it dark. Okay? Let's move to a different bit. I want to do the back of his eye here. So that is that eyelid coming out and down. Everything under the eyelid is going to be dark, and everything on that side of the eye is going to be dark because the eye is a ball. So we can do a nice dark line across here, which I'd already drawn in, but it's okay, doesn't matter, I can put it back in. He's almost like he's got eyeliner on. This bit is going to be This is a corner, so this is going to be nicely shaded in. Blend it out. And blend it back. Get a nice transition. It's the same thing as I do with pencils for anybody who's done my colour pencil classes. It's exactly the same. Just going to touch up that bit a bit. Add a little bit more of the dark around the highlight. And then this eyelid is coming out at an angle, so we're going to put the light colour, the lightest light on there, because it's catching the light source. So all the bits that are facing that direction. So there's going to be a lighter light here and here. Where's my yellow? Okay. This one dries very fast. And this bit catches the light all the way up and over the brow. That's what tells us that the eye is a ball that is protruding out gradually from the face. Whoops! Bloody hell! I hate when that keeps happening. There we go. So now the top of the eye matches the bottom of the eye. We could even put in a few, because these little bits here, so this roll here would catch the light as it goes back up this way. Only very slightly, because again it's rolls. So you're going to have very slight catching of the light, darker, dark. But I've already put those in, so I'm just putting in a few highlights, less than we have on the top of the eye, because remember this is the side of the ball that's going back away from the light. Just put in a little bit more there. That's better. And this part now, we need to lighten up the bottom of his eye a little bit, because at the moment he's got dead eyes. His eyes are black, there's no life in them whatsoever. So let's figure out exactly where his black, his darkest dark is going to be. So I've put in his eye line, his actual eyeball here is going to be very, very dark. That's his contact shadow, or cast shadow. So he's got his contact shadow is his eye line, and his cast shadow just below that. But what happens once the ball turns the other way? Well, we've got a slit here that is facing that way, and if it's facing that way, it's catching the light. So at the bottom of the eye, we need to have some lighter tones. So in order to make the slit for the eye, I'm going to go in here and add I want to keep his eye line, like his eyeliner almost, because that shows where the edge of his eye is. I'm effectively painting him in a waterline. Now, animals don't really have waterlines, but we're kind of giving him one. And this part of the flap, is it catching the light? No, because it's facing that way. The bottom of the flap, is it catching the light? Not really, but the curve here is catching the light. So, just along the bottom here, we're going to need to change to our lighter colour. Not that one, that's our light. I want our mid-light. Let's, where's my cream? There we go. Too many paints open. Oh. So we're back to the warm beige, which is going to give us his waterline. Just in there like that. Blend it in. And then the lightest light is going to be that bit there. Because that is the bit that is directly facing the direct light source and it's wet. The bottom of the eye is wet. So it's going to have that extra highlight. Coming back up under the eye, so what will be reflected in his eye, is he going to have moonlight reflected in his eye? No, because he's got a big old head here. His big old head and his big old eyelid is not going to allow his eye, which is on the side of his head, remember, it's not like us. It's on the side of his head, not like a dog. Dogs are there, cats are here, like us. Rhinos are at the side. So that direct light source from there is not going to hit underneath his eye. So what are we going to get there? We're going to get the soft light coming up from the lake. So here, we need to look at what shape is the eye. So the eyeliner is going to be, that's a little bit too much paint. The line of the eye here is just going to catch a little bit of highlight. Not a lot, because he's got eyelashes there. We're going to put those in a minute. But just along here, again, it's wet along there. That's going to catch a little bit of the light. His ball of the eye, again, think of your 3D ball. If the light's coming from here, it's going to be here. And it's not going to be a big white blob. It's going to be a soft light. It might even be broken up a little bit because it's reflecting the water. We can break that back up with our mid-tone. So it's definitely not too sharp a highlight. And then finesse it with a little bit of the dark to make sure that his dark bit of his eye is really dark. Break up some of that colour. It's almost like erasing back out what you've put in until it looks right. You see, now that looks like, you can't see it very well because it's not auto-focusing. Hang on. Autofocus. 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 There we go. Now it looks like he's got water reflected in his eye as opposed to just a big white blob of sunlight. We're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. Okay. I want to do a little bit more finessing on his neck here. So I'm going to go back to my dry scrubby brush. I mentioned before it's going to go round, so I've got a darker colour in here already. Let's put in a little bit darker. That might be a little bit too dark, but it's acrylic, we can always paint over it, doesn't matter. Blend this bit out a bit, just make it look a little bit softer, because obviously not always, but most animals, the throat and the eyes are the softest parts. So if he's going to have smooth skin anywhere, it's going to be on his throat. So we can make that look nice and smooth. No wrinkles. Just a nice blend. So that part of the skin looks smooth compared to this part, which is obviously wrinkled and craggy. I'm going to do the same up here. So this bit, turning towards the light, let's blend that out a little bit. Again, make it nice and soft. Blend out a mid-tone. And again, here we've got the same thing as the horn. His head is not just going that way, it's going that way as well. So this way, from the bottom, this part is going to be dark. Blending up into there. Blending out into the lighter areas. This is where we can take some of the shine off that secondary light source. I want to do a similar thing down here, but I'm going to do it with both colours together because I've already got the dark in there. I don't want to blend that out, but I do want it to reflect this bit is dark, like that. There we go. I can use the texture of the paper there to give him a bit of a, it's not really dry brush, it's kind of smudgy bits. Let's get his crease in there like we did before. A bit less defined on this one because it's a much bigger area. I'm happy with the shading here on this one, so I'm just going to add a little bit more grey because this horn is above this horn. So this is getting secondary light, which means this horn is not getting as much secondary light. So if I put a little bit of grey into here, there was some already, but I'm just adding a little bit more. He has a crack in his horn, so I'm leaving that dark bit in there. Okay, that works nicely. Secondary light, so we're using our warm beige. And I don't want to go crazy with it, so to the little pen, brush even. So it's going to be a little bit of reflected light along there, and it's going to catch the light here again because he's got that crack. This bit is almost entirely facing the water, so we're casting a tiny little bit of light upwards. Same with his nose. Yes, he's got dark in there, but again, it's rolls, so he's going to have little bits of reflected light. And those tiny little bits of light give definition to his form. You don't have to put a lot of paint down to get definition. Just working with black and white will give you all the definition you need. Now, his nose, his nostril, that's a bit different to his eye. It's not a flap coming down over a ball, it's a crevasse. So it literally comes out and round and in and back out and round. So I don't really want to do an awful lot to the nose because it actually, I'm quite happy with the way it looks. It looks like it's supposed to. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of finessing on there. I've got a little bit of black in my paint cap here so I can get that blended colour that I've been using. And just finesse out the edges of his nose there. See? Now it looks much more like it comes out and there's a kind of a ridge and it goes way back in there in his nostril. I think we're getting there. I think we're nearly done. We're not far off done. I need to do some more on this bit and his ears. And then I want to do, I think I've done as much as I want to do on his back. I really like the way his back looks, but I think this bit could do with a bit of blending out like this. I need to put some mid shades in here. So we're not far off done. Well, I think we're going to finish tonight. Hopefully within the next hour. I'd like to get it done in an hour. If it takes 2, that's okay. But Mama wants some food. So let's take a little bit of a break. Anybody got any questions? Oh, about anything that we're doing in class at the moment. Not just the painting bits. Oh, excuse me. Goodness. While we're having a break, I can show you what I've been doing. Because my tablet, my beloved tablet, that I didn't realise I loved so much and used so often until it stopped working one day. That's how things are in my house. In fact, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was going through all the things that had happened. Just before Easter, my car broke down completely, like dead. Not just, oh, it needs a new battery, like dead. Turns out it needed some glow plugs. My car broke down, my iMac started playing up, and I had to get a load of stuff off. It basically ran out of memory, and I had to do a whole load of downloading and admin type stuff. My tablet just didn't switch on one day. And when I tried to charge it, I thought, oh, I've forgotten to charge it. Charged it, nothing happened. Nothing. My phone died. Actually, both my phones have died, but in different... That's not true. All three of my phones have died. My Galaxy Note has sound, but no microphone. And my iPhone, guess what? It has a microphone, but no sound. Oh, you couldn't make it up. So I dug out my very, very old, this is my super old backup. It actually belonged to my ex, and I don't use it because it reminds me of him. That's why I haven't used it, even though it's a perfectly good phone. It's a bit silly, but I can't help it. That's my brain. It reminds me of him, so I don't want to use it. But this one has everything working, except it needs a new battery. And you can't put a new battery in these because the backs don't come off. Everything else, it's a waterproof phone, you see, so it's got to be specially taken apart. These two, if they had a battery problem, I could fit a battery to this. It's easy, you just unscrew it. This one, the back comes off anyway. The sigh. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my shoulder went. So it wasn't until I was talking to somebody the other day and she said, "Do you think maybe the universe was trying to tell you something?" I thought, oh, hang on a minute, you could be right there. So we think the universe was trying to tell me to take a break because my car, which was completely dead and everybody thought it was going to need a massive amount of repairs, MacGyver them together. Yeah, that would normally be me, but I just couldn't be bothered. I was like, oh, I don't care. My car should have been, everybody was saying it was a starter motor. It turned out to be glow plugs. Starter motor, £170. Glow plugs, £8. It's also got a 40 battery, but the battery's under warranty, so that doesn't cause a problem. iPhone should be massively horrible. Oh, hello Siri, shush. Should be a massively horrible, expensive repair. What's wrong with it? The loudspeaker. You can replace the loudspeaker in these in about 15 minutes. £9 on eBay. Not even that if you get them from China, where the parts were originally made. This one, no microphone. Is it easy to replace the microphone? Not particularly, but you can buy a part and take it to a shop and say, put this in here, and it'll cost a lot less than trying to take it to Samsung and get it repaired. So that's going to be a cheap fix too. My shoulder is fine since I started easel painting. So not only have I come out of it unscathed, relatively unscathed, it still cost me money, but not costing me as much money as I thought it was going to do. But everything's working again. Oh, and my tablet, I was sat there the other day. If you follow me on Instagram, you'd have seen this. It's been sat on that table there since before Easter because it's shut down. The other day, it just turned itself on. I was like, welcome back from the dead. I think the universe was telling me I needed to start easel painting and take a break. Take a break from technology and just sit at your easel and paint. And by the way, easel painting would be good for your shoulder. Because I've learnt so much in the last 2 weeks about painting at an angle instead of paint. Because I've always painted flat. I'm one of those people that, like, when I write, I don't write like this. I write like this. Nose to the paper. That's why my writing's so tiny. Now I can sit, I can still do that, but I can sit properly at a comfortable angle, and I can still angle it so that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. So I've come out of it there. My car's fixed. I've got my freedom back. We got the car back, didn't we, Miss Maddie? We went out in the car today. Miss Maddie was very excited. She's been very disappointed every time we've gone outside. and she's been looking for the car, because we usually get in the car and go for a drive to somewhere to go out for a WALK. Otherwise we end up just sitting in the park across the road, and that's not really interesting for them. So this morning I took her around the back of the house, and she's got used to the fact after 6 weeks that we didn't have a car. Car's gone, no car, no car. She got round the corner and she went... She was so happy. Her tail was going. She recognised the car, didn't you, baby? Yes. And she loved it. She was a very happy girl. Very happy girl going out in the car. I know. You love the car, don't you? You're such a beautiful girl. Do you want to come up and say hello? No, she says. You were talking about me. I don't want to talk to you, thank you. Oh, kisses. Thank you. That's nice. So yeah, apparently Mercury retrograde needed to teach me some lessons this time round about taking it easy. Which is what I said at the beginning of the year, isn't it? I needed to take more breaks, longer breaks, on a regular basis, rather than a month off in the middle of the year. I needed to take a week here and a week there, and guess what? I hadn't taken a break. I took a week off because I was sick, but that's not the same as taking a break. Being sick's harder work than not being sick sometimes. Anyway, look what I can show you here. Oh, I don't need to put it at an angle like that because it's already at an angle. Can you see that okay? I think you can. So that note program that I was using on my Galaxy Note, I found, what have I done with my stylus? Oh, it's there. Works on this. So I've been playing with a digital planner. I know. Total redundancy because I already use a planner. I've got a paper planner, I've got a bullet journal, and I've got an organiser, so I really don't need another planner. However, I just like the look of it. I prefer it in... If I had an iPad, I'd use GoodNotes, because GoodNotes, you can go and it turns the page. We're not quite as fancy here, but... Why is that like that? Oh, because I changed the paper size. I changed it from... It was originally A4 landscape, and it's now not A4 landscape because this size fits on the paper better. But it's dead easy. I'm going to need to do this, obviously, but you just move stuff to where you want it to be. It's Friday. And because I'm using my S Pen, which is the Samsung pen, it's like a... All the Galaxy Notes have these S Pen styluses. That's a Saturday one. That's going in there. Hi, baby. Are you singing to Mama? I wouldn't normally have to resize. It's literally just because I've resized my paper, but that's how it's going to look. And I can zoom in. So this is the, whoops. Going in there. What's the date? 12th. That'll be going in there. I can delete that off. It's fun. And if I want to, I can put stickers and stuff in. I just copy and paste them from somewhere else. And I've also put in, It doesn't have live links, so I can't pick... Maddie! Shush! Stop crying. I can't jump from this page to this page and have it look like that. But I can say, okay, I'm going to jump from April to the May calendar, and it will come up like that, and then I can I just have to resize it, or I can do it that way to make it fit the page. So, you know, I can jump to April, or I can jump to my sticker sheet. I haven't put any stickers on here yet. So it goes to the title rather than the page overall, so it's not quite as good as a live link. And also you can't put links within pages, so I couldn't put a list like you can on a website. But it works in the way that I want it to, and I can reorder these obviously. So this, not only have I got the pages of my bullet journal here, I can also use the jump links to have my tabs. I just put fancy things in because it needs to anchor to a picture. It's cool, isn't it? I rather like it. So I've just put in basics for now. I've got a basic calendar. I'm just trying it, essentially. I'm not saying, oh, yes, I'm going to go digital or anything like that. I just want to try it and see how it works, because I love my tablet and it would be really good if I used it more often, because I really enjoy using it. For my week, I just put in, again, I'm going to just have to move these. Whoops. Oh, redo. Go back to there. There we go. So just lasso that. Resize it a bit. And put it on there. Ugh. I have to move that first. There we go. Let's just move these across. I'll sort all this out later, but let's put that there for now. You can see it. So here I've put a calendar. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. And I've got, this is just an insert. It's like a picture insert that you insert into your page. So you can set your page up in any way you want. So if you start your week like I did, and on Wednesday you think, hang on a minute, I could really do with a calendar, you can add it in. If you think, oh, I don't really need this calendar, it's in the way, I want to put some notes here, you can delete it. And then I just circled that date and put a picture of a doggy there. And a note that that is the anchor portrait I need to do for this month. They're doing a auction for a portrait to raise money. And then I've got the art bun challenge, which I just downloaded. I took a screenshot from Instagram, cropped it down, put it in. It's really good fun. It's making, I keep doing that. I don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. You just do that and it resizes automatically. Yeah, it's just fun. I'm enjoying it. It's making planning interesting rather than just writing on a page. I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. I suppose it's the difference between art journaling and just writing, or, you know, creative journaling and just writing, or collaging, painting versus just collaging, or whatever. You know, it's kind of that next step that makes it more interesting. And in the same way that Miss Vicky B is a hobbyist when it comes to collecting new planners, I am a hobbyist when it comes to collecting new ways of doing stuff and playing with things. So, and I am a geek at heart, so. Plus, absolutely everything from all my phones backs up to my tablet. So everything is available on my tablet if I need it. So I can create a link. Like I can say, put in a video icon and say, like I did for today, live show for Patreon. And I can put in a picture. As long as I put in an icon, I can link to that icon. And I can use that icon, I can link to a web address. So I linked it to the actual YouTube link for here, like I'd done to the blog post. I could have linked it to the blog post on Patreon, but then that would have been 2 steps. But direct from my planner, I could go, right, okay, I'll go from there to the YouTube link to be able to paste it places. Very cool. It's very cool. It will never replace paper for me in any way, because any more than, you know, digital painting would replace paper painting for me. I like the tactile stuff, but it's also fun to play with digital sometimes. I like to do digital sketching. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing this. It's like it's like those people on YouTube when you get a new planner and the first thing they do is go, "Oh, you're not using your Midori anymore." Well, yeah, I am using my Midori. I'm just not using it as a planner. I'm using it for something else. Because they can't get their heads around the idea that you can have multiple books. I don't know. I always find that entertaining. It's like an ongoing joke with me and Vicky and Carrie. Carrie will message me and say, "So I just posted a video showing a walkthrough of my new Sheep Sparrow cover. And guess what the first comment was?" And I said, "Well, what planner were you using before?" She said, "My Mr. Darcy." I said, "Right, in that case, the first question would be, are you not using your Mr. Darcy then?" She's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what my first question was." So again, here I'm accounting for the ball, but I've also got to account for the fact that, yes, this bit is a ball, but within the ball there is a ball. So we've got oops. Yeah, it's a bit harder on this screen because it's smaller. However, it is useful to be able to draw things and you'd be able to zoom in and show you what I'm talking about and use different colours without changing my pen and stuff. So with this, what we've got is we've got the ball, which is the top of the head, the back of the head, the jaw down into his nose. Obviously it goes off like that, but, well, not like that because that's a duck, but you know what I mean. But then here we've got a sphere shape that is covered by an eyelid. But that ball shape doesn't just stop, it goes all the way out to here. So you've got, it's almost like a hat where it's flat and then it's got a big dome in the middle. So it's rounded, but then it's got a little bit of a ball in the middle as well. It's like the bubble on a pancake. Don't you just love my visuals and analogies? A rhino's eye is like the bubble on a pancake. Or the yolk of an egg. How about that? So I'm bringing the curve around this way, but I also have to allow this bit to bulge out that way. So from about here, it's actually going to start... I'm sorry, Maddie, are we keeping you awake? Oh, we are, apparently. It's going to start gradually getting lighter. as this ball heads that way. And then this bit will go back there. So what we're doing here effectively is we're separating out lights and darks with shades and tonal values. So instead of having black and white, we've got black and white and grey. And then we have black and dark grey and light grey and white. And then we have white and very light grey and light grey and dark grey and medium grey and dark grey and black. And the more of those little segments you put in, the better your blending will be. So this, rather than being dark grey to lavender grey, we've now got dark grey, not so dark grey, dark lavender grey, and now we've got light lavender grey because I've just mixed silver in with it. So this is getting more and more rounded and less clunky. You like my visual analogies? These colours here are kind of odd, but I like the way this looks. I think around his mouth and where he's eating and things like that, he'd have dirt and grass stains and things like that. Herbivores, rhinos, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking he would have grass stains and dirt on his face, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm not going to touch it, I'm just going to leave it. This bit, I kind of like the way that changes. I think maybe I need to darken this bit down a little bit. His reflected light is a little bit too reflected just there. That's better. Just a tiny bit to take the light off it. It's amazing how much you can do with not very much paint at all. This is like how much paint I'm using at a time. I'm not even putting a lot of paint on my brush. I'm literally not even putting it in the paint. I'm putting it down the side of the paint and dipping the edge of the brush into the paint. That's how little I'm using. Now we've got this bit is coming round to the light. So if this is very, very light and then darker, our darkest part is not going to start till around here, which is just about right for blending into that eye around there. I like that patch of lighter colour on his head. I think it looks kind of cool. Like he's got a patch of mud on him or something. So what's our next lightest colour is our grey. So I'm going to go from the lavender grey to the grey. It's still wet, so we'll get a transition of lighter lavender grey in the middle. And then we're going to go into the light grey on its own. Whoops, dog hair. So light grey on its own. Again, I'm going to leave these patches of bits. I kind of like them. Just blend around them. And then here, we're going to get the light to the cream. So we can go in with the cream. And blend it into the grey so we get a light grey. Now it would be tempting at this point to say, here's the horn, so this bit must be in shadow. Nuh-uh, because this bit is going that way. So you've got a plane like that with a horn sticking out of it. See how my hand is not getting shadow on this side? Because that horn is not blocking the light. That horn is facing the light. So if this bit is catching the light, then this bit will also be catching the light. So we're going to have a highlight down here. I'm just going to go in, smooth that bit out as well while I'm there. I'm happy with how this horn looks. I don't need to do anything more with that, I don't think. But again, it's on this crease. It's a bit difficult to get it done. Once I've finished this one, which I think we're going to be finished soon. Yay, says everybody. Thank goodness for that. I am not a fast painter, people. Well, I suppose I could have done it fast if I'd, you know. I'm going to tone that down just a tiny bit with the grey. Just in that area. Just to give it a little bit of variation around that horn. There we go, that's better. When in doubt, smudge it out. I'll show you how I scan this because I've only got an A4 scanner. So obviously this is not going to fit on an A4 scanner, on the A4 scanner bed. That's not true. I have an A3 scanner, but not everybody has an A3 scanner. And they're extremely expensive and you can only get them from one company in Germany at the moment, as far as I know. Or you could the last time I looked, anyway. Now this is more conical, so this base is wider than that. That means this is going to catch the light a little bit more than I've painted it. So I'm going to add a little bit more of, not a lot, just enough. That's better. Now this base looks wider than that bit. Yeah, I'm going to show you how I would scan this and stitch it all together. Because I think that would be useful. Because obviously this is in a book, covers 2 pages, cannot very well sell a print or anything of this if it's got a bloody great line down the middle. So we have to learn how to scan it and overlap it. Don't worry, there'll be a post about what you need to do to set up before you start doing that. Obviously that'll be for beginners. If you already know how to do it, then you don't need to worry about it. But it's always worth watching tutorials like that because you might learn a quicker way of doing something. Right, let's do something with these ears. Now his ears are like that. So what's going to be catching the light? It should be this plane here. However, that is not a plane on an ear, is it? It's a big hole. So what we're going to get is a tunnelling effect. Where it goes down. Let's do the rest. Let's do the other ear while I've got it on the brush. It goes down towards a darker area. Again, thinking about which planes are facing the light and which planes are not. I'm going to put a little bit there because I want to blend it out with a bit of dark. Give it a little bit more transition. Again, black and white, light and dark, or light and dark with a bit of grey in the middle. It's always going to look better with a bit of grey in the middle. If you can get 2 shades of grey in the middle, it's going to look even better. So on our transition, we're going to have a little bit of grey coming down here as well. And by dry brushing it, I can also make it look like he's got hair in his ears, which I believe he has. I believe rhinos have hair in their ears. If they don't, well, they do now. So again, thinking about which part of his ear is away from the light. This side of his ear is away from the light a little bit. And then the tunnel gets darker and darker as it goes down. The back of his ears, we'll deal with in a minute. I did them kind of lighter because I wanted them to catch a little bit of the moonlight, because the moon's here, but it's still coming down that way. You know, the moon is really big. It's not just a little spot over here, it's a really big moon. So that bit of his ear is catching the light a little bit. This bit of his ear will be catching the light because it will reflect off his back a little bit. But again, it's lighter there than it is there. So we're getting secondary light, and then we get tertiary light. A reflection of a reflection of a reflection. So I think what I want to do next is to put in some fine details, or finer details. I want to put in some little tufty hairs around this ear, because I noticed, whoops, I noticed that his tuft of hair that goes across his head also comes down here and goes into over his ears. I presume, like with a dog, that protects his ears from insects and things, or flies or whatever, dust, dirt. Yay, next door's dog started barking again. On the plus side, since she got that yappy little thing, she stopped complaining about my dogs barking. So that's a good thing. So this is a tufty bit. I don't want to do too much in here. Just want to give it a little bit of rough texture. And then I'm going to come back over with the cream, the warm cream, and a dry brush, just to get some texture in under the highlight here. Because when you look through hair, there's light bits and there's dark bits and there's medium bits, and it's all very, very textured. Actually, you know what? That crappy brush I just threw away would have been really good for this. This is why I don't throw paintbrushes away very often. This is why I've still got this brush, I expect. Because I threw it away before and then I went, yeah, you know what? I could use it for this. Yeah, perfect. And then we'll do a little bit on the ears. Not much, I just want to give it some variation. Where it's coming out towards the light. I'm not smudging these because I want them to look like hairs, so I want them to remain quite sharp. Not overly sharp, but quite sharp. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, ow. Sorry, I didn't realise it was going to be that loud. I should, because I take after my dad, and he... Honestly, if he sneezed now, you'd hear him from here. Okay. Put a little bit more warm cream just there to pick up that highlight. And also just up here, just a tiny bit, not much, just enough to give it some dimension. Now this ear is not as light because it's not facing forward, facing down, it's facing back. So this, this ear, I'm going to do the highlight in grey to show, much like we did here, you know, direct light, primary light source, secondary light source. If that's a secondary light source, this is going to be the tertiary light source. So we can tone down some of that by putting some grey in there. See? Now, if this is tertiary light source, because it's reflecting off there, this is going to be a secondary light source. So we need some beige, a little bit more beige. I already put some in, but we need a little bit more beige into this area. And then this is getting lighter as it goes up towards the... Bless you, thank you very much. I'm getting a little bit of lighter colour up here, but I'm not going to do too much because I like that kind of muddy kind of look, like he's been rolling in the dust. I think we're looking pretty good. Right, the last thing I want to do now, let's evaluate. Let's evaluate what is looking okay and what is not looking okay. Actually, there is a bit that's not looking okay. What do you think? Tell me the bit that is not looking okay. What bit do you think? Don't be worried to say, oh, what about this bit? You know, it's not, this is critique. It's not, you might think that a bit doesn't look quite right. Actually, it's how I want it to be. And that's okay. That's just a difference of opinion and a difference in technique. But there is a glaring bit that is obviously not gelling with the rest of it. Can you see it? Don't be afraid of getting it wrong. It's perfectly okay to get it wrong. Because I can then tell you why that particular bit looks the way it does, and you'll learn something about about my perspective. It's going back to my perspective versus your perspective. It's just a difference in taste. But there is a bit that needs some attention. The gradation of shading at the jaw. Okay? That's what I call the jaw. So which direction do you want me to go in? North, south? Well, tell me by a clock. Use a clock, tell me what direction to go in from there. That's the point of the jaw, the hinge. Nine o'clock. So across this way. Okay? Yes, to a point. This could do with being a little bit smoother. However, you were painting and not paying attention. You might have missed me saying that I was going to leave this section the way it was here because I liked the idea of him having a bit of dirt on his face. You can't see it on the camera, but there's greens and browns and splotches and all sorts in here. I think it kind of looks like he's been chewing grass and he's got some grass stains and a bit of dirt. They rub their faces in the dirt. So actually that bit is intentional. The horn, okay? Which horn? 1 or 2? Oh, waiting for the lag. The funny thing is, I can't even judge your lag because what I'm seeing on my screen is lagged to what I'm seeing on screen on YouTube. But what I'm seeing on YouTube is lagged different to what you're seeing on YouTube, and each one of you is seeing a different lag. So, ugh. So the first horn, you think perhaps a little more colour. Okay. It is a bit two-tonal, I'll grant you that, and I can see why you might think, actually, yeah, I'd put a little bit more effort into that one. Yes, I can see why you would think that. For me, it's fine. That doesn't mean that it's right or it's better. It just means that you perhaps would work on it a little bit more, and I'm quite happy to leave it as it is. In fact, if either of the horns needed more work, I would have said it was this one around here. But again, it's on the crease of the page. It's tedious and annoying, and I don't want to do it. Thinking more of the line of the jaw, the black to the mid-grey bit. Oh, right, okay, so you're talking more about the black to the dark grey here. I think that's the same thing again. Yes, I could futsy about with that, doing another shade of very dark grey in there that blends those two together a bit better, but I think that would maybe make it stand out a bit too much. Ground under the rhino looks like it's closer than the rhino. Yes, we still need to address that, but this is specifically the rhino himself. We are going to address that bit because we did say last week, thank you for the reminder though, we did say last week that this was going to be a problem because it looked like it was in front of him instead of behind him. We'll deal with that in a minute. I will show you what I'm going to do with that. The bit I'm looking at that looks way out, like to the point where it's almost a bit that hasn't been done, is this bit here. If you think about this bit of the head coming out, for this bit to be so dark and for this transition to be so stark here, this bit of the head has to be like, woof, right out, like massively wide, which it is on a rhino. So if this bit is out massively wide, look what's happening. There's your light source. My light source happens to be in the same place. There's my light source. Oh, this is the bit you were talking about, this side. Okay, you went the wrong way then. You meant 3 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. My light source is in the same place. If this is coming out like this, there's the shadow. If that's the bit you meant, and you actually meant 3 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock, then yes, you were right, Nick K. That is exactly what we need to do. This should not be light. At least not this area anyway. This area is fine being light. It's catching the light, look. And this is coming back out. So even this bit could do with a little bit of catching light here. But this bit should be in shadow. I don't know whose clock you were using, but it wasn't mine. Now this is a flat plane. It's not a ball that has a shadow because it turns away from the light. It's a flat plane that has a cast shadow. So the only bit of this shadow that's going to be really dark is right in there in the crease. So this shadow is going to come up here like that. And it's going to gradually blend out. So what I'm going to do is start by going in with the grey, which is my last colour, to define where the end of my shadow is going to be. Which might seem a bit backwards. You might think, well, why wouldn't you just start with the dark and blend outwards? If I start with the black and blend outwards, the shadow is going to elongate, naturally going to elongate. It's a little trick that I learned from It was actually from a makeup guide. Back in the day, those of you in the UK will remember ITV, the morning show where they used to have makeovers and all that kind of stuff. Makeup lessons and hair and, you know, I think it was Andrew Collins actually. No, his hair. It wasn't Andrew Collins. It was the guy who did the makeup with Andrew Collins. I don't remember his name. And he said, whenever you're doing your eyes, and this is like, it's so the opposite of what everybody does these days. I don't know how they manage it, but he always said, before you can do eyeshadow, you have to put in your eyebrows. Because if you don't know where the edges of the canvas are, you can't accurately paint the canvas. Is that a good quote or what? Yeah. If you don't know where the edge of the canvas is, you can't accurately paint the canvas. Now that is where my idea for using squares to define how big your face is going to be. Otherwise your face just gets bigger. You start with an eye and it just gets massive and you don't have enough room. If you decide my head is going to fit into this space, or my eyes, nose and mouth are going to fit into this space, that immediately limits how big your head is going to be. So by doing it this way and starting with my light colour, rather than starting dark and blending out and ending up with a shadow that comes right out here when it shouldn't, I'm already saying, right, this is as far out as I want that darkness to come. So somewhere between there and there, I've got to get from light grey to medium grey to light lavender grey to lavender grey to dark lavender grey. It's an excellent quote. And it's stuck with me. It makes sense. Even when I'm doing my makeup, first thing I do is my eyebrows, because I don't have any eyebrows. If you've got eyebrows, yeah, you can go in and do the rest of your makeup and work out what you want to do with your eyebrows afterwards. But seriously, if I take the black off my eyebrows, I have no eyebrows because I'm a redhead. I should probably get them dyed or something. Also, I'm missing half an eyebrow on this, not this side. This side goes all the way down to here. But the hair on this side stops here. There's a good 1/4 inch missing because of a scar. So, anyway. So we've got silver. Still got some silver on my brush. Go to silvery grey. Smudge it out. So we get the tone in the middle. Oh, this bit's still a little bit damp. That's good. Bring it on up, because we want to go into next proper lavender grey, darker. Again, keeping that shape. It's going to come up this way, coming right up, almost to the end. Grab the dark grey, only a little bit. Still got the lavender on my brush. A little bit of dark grey. Pop that in there. Just dotting it in because I want it to be nice and light. A little bit darker down here because it's transitioning that way and that way. So a little bit darker down here. Blend that in. What I don't want to do is put in a black or a dark grey on this side of the jaw, because what will happen is it will flatten out his jaw. I want to keep the shape of his jaw there. So I'm going right up to it with the dark grey, or dark grey lavender. You see how it's already flattened it out a little bit. This is where our blacks come in. Now and only now do you need to grab a piece of black. Tiniest brush you own. and I am not touching the side of the neck we've been working on. I'm going to distinguish the part of the neck where it comes out, because again, if you look at a curve from the right perspective, it becomes a solid line. So I am just putting in that line where the jaw literally goes back and then drops down to his neck. You see how that now looks like it goes round and drops. And then this is a shadow. Now I actually could do with a little bit more shadow coming across. I haven't really, I've done the lavender shadow and the grey shadow at that angle, but then I haven't done the dark grey shadow at that angle. So we need to grab a little bit more dark grey and a little bit more lavender. So a bit of lavender first. And I'm even going to go down into that bit a bit. A bit of lavender on the brush. Oh, that dog needs to be quiet. And then that's already dark, so it's fine to put a bit more dark in there. And then let's blend this in a little bit to make that smoother transition. A little bit more. And that looks much more like a cast shadow. If you're not sure, put your hand over. Is it looking about right for where you think it should be? Could do with a little bit more down the bottom, down here. So I'm going to use that same. I've got again, I've got dark grey, I've got lavender. I haven't got the blend in between. So a little bit of both. Smoothing it out because again that little bit under his neck is smoother. There we go. Now we've got a cast shadow. I'm really happy with that. That looks really good actually. I'm going to do a tiny bit of a cast shadow up there, but I'm not going to do a dark cast shadow because again his head comes up and out just below his ear. So this bit here would just have a tiny bit of a cast shadow. Not a lot, but just enough to continue that angle. See how the angle gets to there and it stops. So we just need to allow that to be a little bit more of a transition. Oh, come on, paint. I stick my brush in my paint, I get a dog hair. What's going on here? So just this bit here. Again, keeping that angle. I don't want to go all the way up here. I just want to do it from behind there and out. Blend it in with the grey that's already there. There we go. I'm so happy with this. Right, okay, now I've said about it, that bit's bugging me, so I'm going to do your bit, Val, but on the other horn. Oh, that's black instead of grey, but never mind. It's only for this little bit here. Just use a little bit less paint than we would if it was grey. actually like that. So let's do a little bit more here. Oops. Again, I'm leaving this jagged because did you know, well, you probably did, I didn't, a rhino's horn is not a tusk like an elephant. Like I thought narwhals were like unicorns. I didn't think they were real. But I thought a narwhal horn was like a rhino horn, but it's not. It's a tooth. It's like an elephant tusk. So I was like, well, hang on then, what's a rhino horn? Apparently a rhino's horn is matted hair. All the way through, it's just hair. Huh? I thought it was going to be like, well, I assumed it was the same material as tusk originally, and then I realised tusks were teeth, so of course it's not. So my next logical step was, oh, well, it must be like a deer, where it literally is a bone spur. It must be bone. Nope, it's not bone, it's hair. The things you learn when you get lost on the internet. Okay, now we need a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit of lighter here. I'm not going to use my very light highlight. I don't want to make his body too detailed. I want to keep all the highlight here, all the focus. So I'm going to use my warm highlight, and I'm just going to dab in a few little spots of something, just to give the impression that actually this bit of his shoulder is coming back out. See how now that looks really dark? That's obviously going in, and then this is getting lighter and lighter, and oh look, this has got highlight on it, so that must be dark. So now it's going down in and back up. It is crazy, isn't it? I didn't realise that. I mean, I never really thought about it. I just, you know, Stegosaurus. What's a Stegosaurus's thing made of? You know, the plates coming out of his back. Well, it's like a deer. It's a plate of bone, like a deer. But a Triceratops, you know, the one with the 3 prongs, that's like a really nasty, battle-weary rhino, their armour is leather. It's their skin that has hardened. It's crazy. And they have a horn and 2 tusks, incidentally. Well, they did. Obviously, they don't anymore. They did, once upon a time, have a horn and 2 tusks. It's crazy. Right. Time to take an overall look. Hi, Miss Maddie, I see you. What's the matter? What's the matter, baby? Oh, it's Boo. Hello, Boo. Hello, Mr. Boo. Do you want to say hello to everybody? Come and say hello. Oh, there's a good boy. Say hello. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. What a good boy you are. Yes, I know. Mommy's working, though. Won't be long. A little bit longer, and then we'll stop and have dinner, okay? We'll go for a park thingy. We'll go to the park. Yeah, give me a bit. Just go and have another nap for a minute, okay? Let's evaluate what is looking wrong. Let's take that away. So, overall, let's just... That's black, that'll do. Let's just take that out of the equation, because that's drawing the eye. If we take that out of the equation... How's it looking? What do we think? I like it. I think it looks really good. We could do just a few more highlights on the water, very, very slightly white highlights. I could do with, I think I was going to go in with my oil pastel actually and just do that because water laps and gets like mini crested waves. Anything else standing out? I don't think there is, you know. I think it's looking pretty good. I like it. I'm really pleased with how this looks. I painted that. Do you ever just look at something you did and go, I painted that? Okay, so this bit is what we need to address. Now this bit is rocks. It's intended to be rocks. But we need to do something about that because it's way too bright. Ina is absolutely correct. So what can we do to make that less bright? Let's think outside the box a bit. What do you think? What can we do? Because remember, it's on the other side of him. It's not getting any cast shadow. It's in the line of the direct light. So it's the right colour. I don't think anybody's gonna get it because it's kind of a trick question. But we'll ask anyway. Less detail. You could repaint it without so much detail, but close rocks are going to be more detailed than these, and that would mean that you'd have to repaint these. Yeah. I think I know what you're getting at. You're not quite there. I don't think anybody's going to get it, if I'm honest, because it's kind of a trick question. The answer is not to fix the rocks, because there's nothing wrong with the rocks. I know, I know. I'm doing it again. What do we have down here? Water. Water is reflective. Now his head is over the water, so he's not going to have moonlight reflected underneath his chin, is he? Because his head's in the way of the direct light getting to the water, which is down here. So we can't have a secondary reflection. But what would we have? I like asking them questions they can't answer, or they have to think about. Yeah, I do. While you're doing that, I'll take pictures because I keep forgetting to do that, don't I? Let's take some close-ups. No, I don't want the flash on. Go away. Shh, 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 shh. matter, Walling? Reflected light on the rocks. Yeah, but we've already got that. You can't make the rocks lighter and darker. They're either light or they're dark. We don't want to make them darker because they're the right colour, which means we've got enough light reflecting on them. But you're going in the right direction. There is a reflection missing. What happens if you put your head over some water? What do you see? Your own reflection. Correct. So, follow the light. Primary light source reflects on the water, secondary light source. Secondary light source comes up, hits his nose, hits his body, because don't forget there's big old rhino body here catching that bit of light as well, and some of the, this is going to be his shoulder coming around here, so some direct light as well, because again, ball joint. So reflecting down into the water is going to be tertiary light, primary light, secondary light, tertiary light. So his own reflection is going to be reflecting some light back up at him. If it was a moonlit night, if it wasn't a moonlit night, he'd just be a very dark rhino in a very dark background. But we've got the moon reflecting on the water, we've got the water reflecting onto him, and we've got him reflecting back into the water. Yes, this is a Bob Ross trick. You are correct. So what colour will tertiary light be? I'm making you work for this today, aren't I? A lighter, cool tone of the water. Correct. And what did we use for the light, cool tone of the water? Grey. So direct light, the yellow, beige. Reflected light, the softer light, the warm beige. The next shade down is our silver grey. So if we take our silver grey, and again, you can't use the light colour because that's the direct light. You can't really use the secondary light source because that would be too bright. It would take attention away from this. If we go to our tertiary light source, what we can do is, because that is grey, dark grey, silver grey looks really light against it. So we can give him a little bit of a silver reflection along his jawline, not a massive hard line. Remember, he's a rounded shape. His jaw is round. So it's not going to be a hard line. He's not a mirror. But if we give him a little bit of... Oh, will you stop moaning, Boo? A little bit of reflected light under his neck there. In his darkest areas. And then when it hits this lighter patch, again, this is not just going down, it's coming out and round. So this is going to start getting lighter. So, again, by comparison, we move from the light grey into the warm beige to go with the lavender grey. Don't want to go crazy with it, just a little bit. Blend it into the grey. Now we can have a little bit of light just on its own. And I think I'm just going to add a little bit more grey in to that very corner bit. Just up here. Just a smidge. To show that arch of his neck. Even in very, very dark circumstances, if there's soft light, you're going to see some detail. It's like, if it's a black cat at night, you're not going to see anything. But a black cat in the moonlight, you can see the fur of the cat because it's different to the dark around it. And then, as always, we go back in and pull it back out. So going back in with our dark grey, super fine brush, not a lot of paint, because we don't want to undo everything we've just done. That's looking more like it. Yep, really good effect from just a very, very tiny line. Now it looks, though, like he's in front of the rock here, but this bit of rock is protruding out under his neck. So it still doesn't look quite right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use a glazing effect on this bit of rock, just to knock the tonal value down a little bit. And the way we do that is to use the dark colour that we used for the dark brown of the rock. But again, the tiniest bit, we don't need a lot. What we do need is something to mix it on. Like a, where's my little baby plastic thing that I use for mixing paints? Where's it gone? I had it here just now. Where's it gone? Where are you? There he is. There we go. I use this for my inks when I need to just mix things with a bit of water. Ooh, he's dusty. We're going to take the very dark brown that we used for this shading. I'm going to take a tiny bit and put it in there. And I'm going to take my slightly larger than normal brush that I use and add some water. If you're doing small areas of acrylic, you can do an acrylic wash. Oh, that's what you were trying to say earlier, just tone it down. Okay, there we go. We got there in the end. So we've got a very, very light wash. Super light. You can see there, we've got hardly any colour in it. but it should be enough to just glaze this bit. Nope, just going to need a tiny little bit more paint. This paint doesn't glaze down as well as I'd hoped. Makes it a little bit darker. You don't want to go crazy. You just want to knock it back a tiny bit. And a tiny bit more just on that bit there. My brush is very wet, and I'm going back in with little bits of paint, and there's water on the page as well, so I can there we go. Tiny. If we'd gone in with paint, that would have been too much. That tiny little bit of water and colour is more than enough. So today's lesson has been in light and dark and tiny moves. Very small moves make a massive amount of difference. And even these bits here, it could be said that that's a little bit too much. That's more like daylight reflection. Let's maybe tone it down just a tiny bit with the lavender grey, which is the next shade down from the silver that we used. Just a little bit. Go over it. Just a bit like that. Soften it out. There we go. Sometimes that's all you need. Now what's got lost in this now is, obviously we've got the bright moonlight up here, which is still looking really good, but he is much brighter than the water that is leading us our eye to him. So I'm going to go back in with some white pastel. I mentioned this last time that I was going to do this right at the end. So here we go, at the end. I'm going to clean my finger because I don't want to get colour in my white pastel. And on top of these bits that are already light, I'm just going to go in and put little specks of white. It's such a small move, but it makes so much difference. Just adding a tiny speck, something a little bit whiter. Will you stop licking like that, Maddie? It's gross. Maddie! Oi! Sound like you're having your lunch. Ew. As the angle gets shallower, the little white bits get closer together. And smaller. As they come closer, bigger, further apart. And now that leads our eye from the bright source right the way down to boom. There's our rhino. I'm really pleased with him. I think he's awesome. If I do say so myself. This paint, because it's a wash and it's at an angle, has run. So I'm just going to grab a paintbrush and just take the colour back up to the top again, which is where we want it. Just redistribute until it dries. Sometimes you have to do that. I'm happy with him. I think he's okay. So I hope that that three-parter monster has given you some ideas, help, assistance, and certainly shown you that you can do a whole heck of a lot with just acrylic paints. Not only just acrylic paints, but just acrylic paints, just acrylic craft paints. You don't have to have amazing paints or amazing supplies or anything like that to be able to do something that you can be proud of. Now, I don't want this white from the oil pastel to flatten over onto here when I close the book. So what I'm going to do, and you have to be very careful not to smudge it, I'm just going to go over the white oil pastel a little bit. Not all over, we're not sealing it, okay? Just going over it with a tiny little bit of matte medium. Oil pastel hardens over time, but because I smudged it out, it's okay. If I was just using hard oil pastel type, not smudged, but just oil pastels on their own, I would not do this. I would leave them and I would fix a piece of greaseproof to this edge, or one edge, so that it folded in and it was attached to the page. For these pages, I only leave it while I'm working on them until they dry completely, because it takes about 2 weeks for them to cure properly so they don't stick together. But this is just enough to stop the oil pastel from smearing onto the other side of the page. And if you do that, you can see where the oil pastel hasn't got matte medium over it. It just catches the light. I'm very, very lightly brushing this matte medium on. Matte medium dries very cloudy, so you don't want to add a load of it over the top of your picture. If you've got a clear matte varnish of some sort, you can use that as well. You can also use a clear matte glazing liquid, that will dry completely clear. So like something like this is a matte glaze. I could have used that as well. Anything that will just steal that down so that that oil pastel will not, over time, impress onto this side of the page. Okay, so I will post bits. It won't happen today because I'll have to download it, and it's 10:45 and it's Saturday night and I'm hungry. So it's not going to happen tonight, but sometime tomorrow I will post the replay of this on downloadable. So if you want to download it, you can. I will post proper images of this, proper photos in daylight, so you can see the actual details, and I will post the step-by-step of today's work. And I will, at some point, it might not be immediately, but at some point I will need to scan this anyway, so I will do a tutorial of how I scan it while I do it. Okay, so you'll get a tutorial of how to scan maybe this, maybe something else, but probably this, because this is exclusively a Patreon piece. Now, I have a little favour to ask you, having made you sit through 3 3/4 hours of don't do this, do that, unless you want to do something else. I would really appreciate it if you guys could promote. You don't have to do anything crazy, but if you get the opportunity, promote my Patreon, my YouTube, or my Twitch, or all three if you want. Share work that you've done and link to me on Instagram saying I did this in a class in Rhomany's Realm. That would be great. My hashtag is Rhomany's Realm. If you see I'm going live on Twitch, share the link on maybe on Facebook or something. If you're on Twitter and you see it come up, Rhomany's gone live, even if you can't be there, repost it. That would be fantastic. I have lost a lot of patrons over the last couple of months in the November, December, January period, and it hasn't yet picked up, and I'm struggling for money. So obviously you guys are already here, you're paying for classes, you're joining in, you're You guys are here at every single session that I do, which is awesome. I love it. I know there's others like Nikki who are in a completely different time zone who also check in every day. And I very much appreciate that. And I think it's great that you take so much interest in a class that you're doing rather than... And I'm just as bad for it, just sitting there and binge watching videos on a Sunday. I binge watch Burgess's videos on a Sunday actually, because Courtney's videos are visual, so I can watch them as I'm going along. But a lot of Burgess's are talky ones, so I tend to listen to those while I'm doing something else. But I know there's a lot of people who save my videos and then come back and watch later, and that's fine. But I do appreciate you guys who turn up to everything and get involved and chat with me and join in and have a play as well. And of course, if you're doing work and you're, you know, working alongside me or using techniques, if you could tag me in your Instagrams or Facebooks or whatever when you share your pictures and say you learned in a class from me, that would be fantastic. Because I could just do with picking up a few more patrons, a few more Twitch followers, a few more YouTube followers, you know, that kind of thing. And that's the easiest way to do it, is for other people to recommend it and say, hey, I really enjoy these classes, which you obviously do because you're still here after all this time. Most of you are top level patrons. Most of you turn up to absolutely everything. I love you. You're awesome. But if you could just do a little bit of recommending as well, or, you know, if somebody says they're looking for a class, obviously you don't have to just recommend me, but it would be nice if you could mention me as well. That would be great. And hopefully we can pick up a few more patrons, a few more followers, and towards the summer it'll get a bit more easy financially for me, because like I said, I am struggling a little bit. I've got my MOT coming up in August. I've got to pay for another repair on my car. It's a bit tight. It's a bit tight. And since you guys are always here and you obviously love what you're doing or what I'm doing, it would be really helpful if you could do that. But don't feel you have to, obviously. Absolutely no pressure, but I'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you very much for joining me. It was almost 4 hours. So my guesstimate of, I think it might take about another 4 hours was almost right. Although we did take a break in the middle. So, yeah, cool. I'm glad you have enjoyed this particular class. If you're watching the replay, if you have any questions, put them in the post down below. Or if you're an alumni and you're on the forums and you want to post work for critique because you've done a rhino or a cow or a camel or whatever, and you want some ideas or some help or whatever, or even if you've painted a flower using the same techniques and you want some help, post it in the forums and I will critique it properly. I do video critiques. So I'll actually print out your picture, I'll have it in front of me, and I will do changes to your picture to show you, in my opinion, how it could be improved. And I think that will help you a lot, because sometimes, as you've seen today, it is just about putting a tiny little mark or a tiny little highlight in the right place. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye.